right, next up we have Dash and we have Ryan Taylor speaking.
Brief introduction. My name is Ryan Taylor. I'm the CEO of Dash Core Group. We have around 35 employees and contractors located across the globe that work for Dash Core Group. And Dash Core Group is an organization, one of many, that support the growth of the network. We're a very important one. We are responsible for the protocol. Most of the development associated with the protocol is done through our organization. We also do a bit of business development, marketing, and other types of support for the network, including representing Dash from a legal standpoint. And so we were created back in 2017. Prior to that, Dash was a little less organized. There were a lot of volunteers around and things of that nature, and this really brought those under one umbrella for a good chunk of the project. There are other teams that work on development projects, end user support, merchant adoption, and a variety of other topics in various geographies around the globe. What I'm going to talk about today, if you could flip to the next slide. There we go. Basically, I'm going to walk through some background on Dash, just familiarize those who might be less familiar with it, and then talk about some of our upcoming milestones related to development and governance, and then I'll leave some time for some questions at the end. You could flip to the next slide. So Dash is a fork of Bitcoin's code, and Dash is a cryptocurrency that's focused on the payments use case specifically. And so what we've done is we've made a number of enhancements and additional features to the Bitcoin code base in order to make it more user-friendly, faster, easier to use, more secure, and far more scalable than the original code base of Bitcoin. And we really treat the improvements that we're making around 4 areas of users. We, of course, focus on individuals, but we also do a lot of work to improve the experience of businesses that integrate Dash. We also focus a lot on the developer community. We're building out, and we'll talk more about this, a new set of features called Dash Platform that allow developers to actually build applications on top of the Dash network and enhance the payment experience of the payment use cases that we're meant to address. And then we also have a group of users called masternode operators. They basically operate our network, and we want to continue to enhance and make features for them. We're really focused around use cases that cryptocurrency is best positioned to address, and where there's a great need that cryptocurrency can fill. We'll talk more about that on the next slide. The features of the network, we're really focused on ease of use. We're really focused on speed. Dash transactions are instant. They're very inexpensive, less than a tenth of a penny. Transactions are secured within about 1.8 seconds. And we do have some optional privacy features that we're known for. We really treat a lot of different aspects of our network differently. The payment network functionality itself is different than the currency, and we'll talk about some of the upcoming governance changes that we're planning on making around the currency itself. And we'll talk more about the developer platform that we're building. Dash Core Group specifically is growing Dash through a number of initiatives. First is the growth of the ecosystem. We're really focused around 3 areas for growth. Venezuela has been a huge success for us. We've thousands of merchants that accept Dash there, and we've been integrated directly into point of sale systems there, making the payment experience seamless for the merchants and the consumers. And we have some big growth plans there with some recent integrations that we've announced with payment partners there. The remittance use case, we've been building out specific components of our ecosystem around remittances that make them very easy, particularly in Latin America. That's kind of been the corridor we've been focusing on in signing up services that will accept incoming payments and distribute the payments on the outgoing end. And of course, there's some synergies there with Venezuela. And then lastly, crypto trading. Because Dash is instant, it's actually really useful for traders. We've had Dash instant send deposits integrated into a number of platforms. We also have a related technology called chain locks that basically allow single confirmation payments to be received by exchanges, and that enables new use cases like arbitrage or value rebalancing for traders that have assets on various exchanges. And so we've been pursuing that pretty aggressively. And then as far as the product goes, we've really been focusing a lot on the functionality and reliability and ease of use components. So we'll see more of the results of that in an upcoming slide. I won't go into detail right here. And all of this is powered by 3 layers to our ecosystem that Dash Core Group is delivering. The first is the payments layer. This is the layer everyone's very familiar with that's ever used cryptocurrency. Layer 2 is this data layer that Dash Platform is building out. And basically that allows for data storage associated with the layer 1 payments. And that has a lot of use cases and implications that we'll get into. And lastly, we build the applications that sit upon that layer. The first of which is called Dash Pay. Dash Pay is really a focus on ease of use in the payment experience. It allows you to have usernames within the network itself, sync your payments and payment experience across all your devices, and create friends lists and things that you might be used to in interacting with the network. And the result of all this effort is that we've seen significant growth. This is the median economic transactions in a typical day, each quarter of the last 2 years. And you can see this consistent growth that we've had. We've been willing to kind of abandon the areas that we haven't seen a great deal of uptake and double down on the areas where we are seeing a great deal of success, and then explore new areas to kind of bring in some new areas that we might be able to grow. And so through kind of iterating through this and really focusing on what's been successful, we've been able to grow our use on the network by quite a bit. If you look at other metrics like active addresses, metrics like the number of wallets on active devices that are installed in Android and iOS, you'll see a similar chart. We've just had this consistent growth, and it really seems like the use cases that we're pursuing have been very successful for us. Next slide. So now we're starting to get into some of the project milestones, some of the stuff that we're working on. So I mentioned Dash Platform. I'd like to explain in a little more detail what it is. Dash Platform is a bit like smart contracts, except the code execution doesn't take place within the network. So if you're familiar with Ethereum and smart contracts, you're aware that data and compute take place within the network. That isn't very efficient, and it isn't necessary for very many use cases. In a lot of use cases, the compute can take place on the local device, and you really just need data storage on the network in order to have a decentralized experience. And so Dash Platform is really a decentralized API, and it's data storage for applications. The first application we're rolling out, as I mentioned, is called Dash Pay, and it allows you to create a profile, store that information within the network, and have that same information sync across all of your devices, including the contacts that you make within the network. When you send a friend request, they accept it, you're now connected, and you just pay to that username. No more long cryptographic addresses. You don't have to get a fresh cryptographic address from them every time you want to transact. That carries risks. If someone is to, say, intercept a message of an address and replace it through a man-in-the-middle attack, it leaves the users vulnerable. And so this is a safer, more convenient, and just more familiar payment experience for people to be able to use cryptocurrency. But you can see very quickly that this is extendable to many other applications. Invoicing. I could send you an invoice along with an invoice number and other reference information in that payment request. And you can respond and include your purchase order number, a internal reference number, a name, a contact, anything that you want that your application supports. And so we're enabling developers to build whatever payment related application they want. That could include rewards, offers, any number of payment related experiences that can be built on the network and accessed in a decentralized way through just an API. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the concept. In contrast with smart contracts, when people are executing code within the network, if there are issues with that code is unstoppable. It means you have to over-engineer these solutions to make sure that they don't break after you release them into the wild. And so this is just a more practical option for people who are just looking to integrate an existing centralized database or application with the Dash payment network. So this is a quick video just to demonstrate some of the functionality. This is part of our video series that we have. This is introducing the ability to create a username on our network. And this is an actual screenshots of the version that we're running on testnet right now and hoping to get out to the mainnet soon. So let's go through the process here of creating a username. All you need is a little bit of Dash to get started or an invite from another user. That is necessary in order to pay the fees for the blockchain transactions on the network. But you're presented with the option to create a username. The user will be presented with some information about what getting a username means and why it's beneficial. So you don't need to copy and paste these cryptographic addresses anymore. It allows you to give your mom your username and have her have the ability to transact with you without explaining how the technology works under the hood. Nobody should have to get a lesson in how to use an application. And so this is really meant for everyone. It's meant for you to be able to interact with friends and settle tabs at dinner or any type of social payment interaction with your friends and family. Very familiar to you if you use Venmo or PayPal or any of these types of applications. And then lastly, that your identity isn't just limited to your crypto addresses. You can actually use that identity in other applications across the entire network. It allows you to create a profile picture, username, a display name, which can be different, and a bio information, so that I don't have to type that information in when I'm transacting. I don't have to type in my phone number, my email address, that type of thing that might be associated with an order. So the user simply has to pick their username at this point. It has to meet certain criteria, alphanumeric characters only. It can't be used by another user on the network. So in this case, the user would get an error message that username was already used, or if they try to violate some other rule. And then of course they can create their actual username that ends up being successful, and then accept that username at the bottom. And all of this kind of is taking place on the blockchain itself at this point. So that initial fee is required. You hit accept. With that fee, you'll be able to make changes to your contacts, your picture, all of that information. And periodically, you may need to top that up. But the idea is to have these be very infrequent requirements of collecting some small amount of Dash to continue to do those types of actions on the network. Once you click accept, you get some updates from the network as your username is confirming to the blockchain. It only takes a few seconds. As you can see here, it's kind of progressing through the stages. And within a few seconds, the user will have a username created. And that process is done. Similar process for sending a friend request. You'd search for that user and send a request, and you'd get updated when they accept it. And so this is the type of very easy to use experience that we think is necessary for a faster adoption of cryptocurrency. And all of this is taking place decentralized. We do have a development roadmap that we publish as part of our quarterly call. I'd encourage you to go check that out. Some highlights from the last quarter: we had a couple major releases on our core wallet, our EvoNet, which is the code name for platform, and the progress that we're making there, as well as Dash wallets. We have new milestones every single quarter. We've already released a new version of EvoNet this quarter, and we're about to release another one that adds that light client support that I just showed you. We're also doing some updates to our Dash wallets, doing demos of our EvoNet. You just saw one of them. And then version 0.16 of our Dash Core wallet will hit testnet, and that gets us up through Bitcoin version 0.16 backports. And we've got more things further out in the future. All right, so in terms of governance, Dash is the oldest DAO. It allows us to vote on proposals. That can include funding proposals, and it also includes decision proposals. We used this to decide on our block size in the past, as an example. Well, we're going through a very exciting process right now. I'm going to be presenting to the network this Thursday morning, US time, a series of proposals that will change some of the economics on the Dash network. Our total emissions schedule is not going to change as a result of these proposals, but it is going to change some of how that coin emission is directed. And we've got some exciting findings to share with the network on how our network behaves in response to a lot of the incentives that are on the network, not just to miners, but to masternodes and to governance proposals. And we've got a set of improvements that we'd like to propose. If the network votes on those proposals and the proposals pass, we will implement them. And so it's a good example of our proposal system in action that allows the network to change in ways that might be difficult for other networks to match. And so we'll be putting those proposals up for debate and for a formal governance vote, hopefully in this month's cycle. And that's really exciting. If you're interested in token economics, I would encourage you to tune in on Thursday for that session. I think that was the final slide, and I'm happy to take questions from the audience.
Oh, well, thanks for that. It's just a couple of questions. First one here, do users prefer to spend Dash using it as a digital form of cash, or is it similar to other cryptocurrencies where people like to hold it as a kind of like a speculative investment?
Well, Dash has always really focused on the payments use case. Certainly there's people who use it for both, just like there are for Bitcoin. But if I were to compare the two groups, I'd say that Dash users are far more prone to actually use it as a currency. What we find is that when Dash is integrated on a payment platform that services multiple different cryptocurrencies, Dash is usually the first or second most used. And it's used differently because it is instant. I was speaking to the CEO of eGifter this week, and they find that users of Dash tend to buy things that are time sensitive, like gaming cards that they plan to use right away, or more likely to buy an exact amount for an exact purchase, say at Home Depot or something. And so oftentimes we hear from some of these payment use cases that Dash is oftentimes more used, and the users like it because it's instant and because it's very inexpensive to use that way. And so when you compare the ecosystems, it is much more used as a currency than other cryptocurrencies. I do think that there's a great deal of speculation and store of value use cases that people do invest in Dash, but you know, on a relative basis, I think it's used much more. Down in Venezuela, we get reports that Dash is used more often than Bitcoin on some of the platforms that we're integrated in down there. You know, you simply can't wait at a point of sale, at a physical store for a confirmation to go through if it takes 10 minutes to an hour. You really need that instant payment experience. And the other piece is the fees. At times like right now, when the fees are quite high on Bitcoin's network, it's infeasible to use it in that manner for a small purchase, for example. And so in those use cases where people are using it as payments, Dash is often the preferred cryptocurrency.
Gotcha. And switching gears a bit, so Dash features kind of like one of the I think one of, if not the oldest decentralized funding mechanism, where you're allocating 10% of the block reward for spending that you can either choose to use or get burned. So what are kind of the pros and cons you've seen from having this mechanism in place?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, I think we have the oldest functioning DAO that allocates funding, and it was put in place in August of 2015. And it hasn't changed since that point in time. It functions quite well for allocating a portion of the block reward. You know, I think that it provides Dash a great advantage because we aren't dependent on altruism or donations in order to fund the resources that are needed in order to continue innovating, addressing legal concerns associated with Dash on behalf of exchanges and things of that nature. And so it really gives us a mechanism to develop the coin and to continue innovating and addressing legal issues, business integrations and things of that nature. So it's been a huge advantage. It's not perfect though. I think that back in late 2017, early 2018, when the network price was very high, there was a tendency for that funding to go to waste, or where it just never got created in the first place because there were no proposals to fill up that available funding, or you know, the masternodes that vote on these proposals, they viewed it as free money that, you know, and a lot of dubious projects got approved at that point in time. At other points in time, we may not want to be investing and the budget simply isn't there. And so I'd like to see that become more flexible. It's actually one of the things that we're going to be talking about this Thursday when I hold that session on improving Dash as a store of value and adding to the flexibility of the network and how some of that funding gets allocated out to various uses, including mining, masternode operation, and the proposal system. And so I do think it can be improved. It was one of the earliest examples. It served us really well, by the way, but I do think that it can be improved.
Gotcha. And this last question before we wrap things up, we have 2 minutes here. How are you growing the Dash community and use cases overseas?
Well, our focus has been a lot in Venezuela and in Latin America. And we do it through the proposal system. We have a variety of different projects that are working on the ground in order to see adoption happen. We've got Dash Mall and Parking that focuses on mall and parking solutions and developing those and servicing those clients. They're a great avenue to signing up new users because in Venezuela, parking and paying for parking is a real problem. And they've been very successful at that. We've got help desk operating in Venezuela, but they serve other communities as well. And that is another community-driven project, not from Dash Core Group. We've got Dash Text. They're another text-based organization that allows for sending and receiving of Dash through text messages. And they've expanded beyond Venezuela as well, but really got their start in Venezuela. So we have many different local leaders that understand the pain points locally, and they can actually act on that by proposing something to the network, having that get funded, and then having the resources to go out and do it. And so I think it's through activities like that that we're able to do it. There are other areas of the world where there are local communities. We have a strong community in Thailand. It's called Dash Next, and they actually do activities throughout the Southeast Asia region. We've got another group out of Africa that is working on local adoption there and have had a number of proposals funded in the past. And so it's through these local efforts really that we're able to grow in various geographies across the globe.
All right. Well, Ryan, thanks for the update on Dash.